Well, I am Sister Martha Jacob, and I was born here in Louisville and lived in the Highlands, or the Douglas Loop kind of area of Bardstown Road, if you're familiar with the city. And I had an older brother, and then a little sister came along when I was in the first grade at St. Francis of Assisi Parish School there, just 2 blocks from where I lived. So I had Ursuline sisters then it was all Ursuline sisters, and then came to Sacred Heart Academy, again Ursuline. Wanted to go there a lot because my friends, we all decided this is where we wanted to go. So had 4 years here on campus. Got involved in the newspaper. We had our own little newspaper. Those were the days that you typed everything out and then printed it out, and then the printer gave you a printed copy, but just in long strips, and then you had to do your own design, your own placement of all of it. So I was on the paper for 4 years and editor the 4th year, and then I was also a hockey player. Now, I tell people that Sacred Heart Academy was small compared to today, and so I say, well, if you had a warm body, you could play a sport, so I don't pretend to be a big athlete, but really enjoyed all of that in the getting to know sisters, friends, make friends with girls older than I was, and that kind of thing. So then it comes time for college. At that time, we had Ursuline College here on campus, and I thought, oh, that's so close. But my brother and sister-in-law knew of a college in Terre Haute, Indiana, and in fact, my sister-in-law, Lil, had graduated from there. So they took me to see St. Mary of the Woods, which was an all-girls college at that time, and I fell in love with that. Was the place I wanted to go. So I had 4 years there and majored in journalism. Now, they were about the only girls' Catholic school that was offering a major in journalism. Now, this is a long time ago. This is 1953. And so having that experience in high school with the paper and like that in English subjects, I decided to major in journalism. So then, and really, the thing about St. Mary of the Woods was we were all dorm students, and the friends I made, and the just wonderful women are now scattered all over the United States, I think was the greatest gift, really. And I had a good education, too. So I'm out of college, and what are you going to do with your life now? And found, well, wasn't quite sure, and it got to be August, and I had graduated in June. And then there was a big need for teachers in the Catholic parochial or elementary schools. And so while I didn't have an education course at all in college, I had a college degree, and so I was hired at St. Raphael, which was also Ursuline Sisters, and of course then they knew who I was, at least. So I taught there for a year and enjoyed teaching, and took a couple classes at Spalding, and then learned of, there's an opening at Loretta High School. Now that was a girls' school, Catholic girls' school in the very west end of our city, if you know where Shawnee Park was, and West Broadway. And I might add then that this seems like kind of the pattern of my life, that things just came. I wasn't the little girl who, when I grow up, I always want to be such and such. I think I kind of just lived day by day and enjoyed. And So I taught that year in high school, and I think probably would have remained there because I really liked the high school level versus the grade school. And then I got a call from St. Mary of the Woods College saying that they needed someone for a year to take over some courses in the journalism department. So off I go back to Back College and taught there a year. So, and I knew that was just for a year when I took the job. So here I am back. What am I supposed to do now? And the college here that I had mentioned, Ursuline College, had an opening for a public relations director. But the Sisters of Providence also offered me a job or a position up in Washington, D.C. at their associate college. And that was a hard struggle of which one do I want? And I settled on Louisville. And that was probably my fatal mistake because it's from then that I said, I think I'm called to be an Ursuline sister. So there's the literature piece of The Hound of Heaven. I think that's kind of God kept putting these things there that this is it, and that's how I ended up entering the Ursuline community or Ursuline Sisters in 1962. So I taught then at the college and did public relations, had both things, and then came over here to the Mother House where I'm sitting right now, and you go, at that time you went kind of as a class. So we lived here as postulants. That's the first step. And so that year I still taught at the college. Then you go as a novice, and you have a year when you're not, or you did, I'm not quite sure. Well, I think that's still true today. So we had another year here. Basically, learning and listening to God, and also getting a feel for, is this where I'm called? Is this what I can do? And the Ursuline Sisters always looking to see, does she seem to have a vocation and a call and for our way of life? So then, after that, then I went back to working in the college. In the meantime, I had gone to, before I entered, I had gone to Indiana University for to start my master's, again, in journalism. And so I had gotten to the point of finishing my dissertation for the master's degree. So the sisters were very, very kind to me in the sense that had to be done. So I always laughed about a lot of what young sisters did was they were taking classes at the college, and then they were doing various things here. And one of them was you worked in the laundry, which is now the building behind the Mother House. We had our own laundry. And I didn't have to work in the laundry quite as much as everybody else, or scrub the floors, because I had to go. They gave me a room over in a little building that's no longer there to finish the master's degree. So I managed to do that. So I continued to work at Ursuline College, and then Ursuline merged with Bellarmine College. It's formed Bellarmine University now. And but when that happened, basically then Ursuline College closed, and so there was not a position there. But at that point I thought, well, I guess what I'm best fitted for in terms of a ministry is teaching, and probably on the college level. So I got a grant. When I said, like for the teaching in grade school, it was like this, there's a need here, so come here, Martha, and help that need. It's like Martha in the scripture where she served. So I got a financial aid, and all. The federal government was actually giving aid to people to become college professors. So I ended up at Michigan State University for 3 years. And then, about a year or so before that, it was time to take final vows or vows for life here at the Mother House. So I came home for that at the end of the summer session, and then one of the things about Louisville was it's hard to believe today in terms of communication and how it's developed and how important it is and how much we need helpers there. There was no college here offering a major in communications, as we call it today. So I taught at Spalding University for a year. They introduced, there were 3 of us professors, and they introduced a different kind of schedule. But that didn't work out too well, so that kind of collapsed. But I also was an adjunct, that means not a full-time teacher, at Indiana University Southeast and at Jefferson Community College, now Jefferson Community and Technical College. And I might insert here, this all went on while major changes were happening here for the Ursuline Sisters also, because our numbers, some Catholic schools were closing, others were merging, and so the whole living and ministry of the Ursuline Sisters was changing rapidly. And so one of these things was going, those ready for ministry in colleges, we went outside the Catholic college. That whole concept of we're called also to go where there are needs and all around. So that number of the sisters, like Sister Joanne Jansing, got a job. She was preparing to teach at Ursuline College, she thought. You never know in the Ursuline Sisters. She was in Baltimore and later at Indiana University as a teacher. So my teaching in these places I wasn't the only one, let me put it that way. The government in the Ursuline Sisters was redesigned, and one of the needs was to open a communication, public relations kind of office to handle that. With degrees in journalism and communications, guess who got selected to do that? So again, it was a call. It wasn't my searching in that sense. Not that I didn't like it, but so I spent many years then in that kind of work in the community. You may have heard that in 1976 we had a fire right here in this building. In fact, didn't damage this room I'm sitting in, but the hallway and upstairs in another wing. And so we had a problem because we had our injured or elderly ill sisters in a little wing right beyond this room. And that, of course, was heavily damaged with water, and I don't think the fire really got there, but it was an electrical fire one Sunday morning in January. So the fire department said, you can't put people there who can't get out of the building on their own. So we needed money, as you always do. So anyway, we had our great development fund drive, and so I was an assistant to the sister who was head of that, and so quickly learned and how to help and do that. So we needed about 150. Let's see. Well, over $1 million, I'll put it, which doesn't sound so much in today's muddy world, but in 1976 it was a good amount in order to both, because we had insurance, to rebuild part of this, and then where to put the sisters. And the college, Ursuline College, when it was here, had a dorm that's over in across the campus from where I am now. If you're familiar with the campus, it was next to Brescia Hall, which is, of course, now the part of the model school. And that was a dorm. So we looked at that, and that seemed the most reasonable. So then that had to be altered. But we succeeded, even though I was also teaching some at Jefferson Community College at that time. That was a rather frequent thing, that sisters didn't have just one ministry, but it all went together. And so I spent some years there. Then in 2000, well, I said, I think I'm going to retire kind of in 2000. That'll be a good round number. Well, in 2008, I was elected the vice president of the community, and we had 6-year terms. And so that takes you up to 2014, and I thought, oh, this is a good time to retire. Well, yes, I'm retired, and no, I am not retired. But I'm kept busy, but I don't have the kind of responsibilities or any of that stuff. I'm one of the old ladies, you know, so now. Of course, it had not actually happened, because I came as a postulant for the first step in '62, and that's when it was opening. I, of course, knew about it, but I think it's one of those things you don't really understand much until it starts happening, and then what goes on there, we're still trying to take on some of those things, and there's discussion and what it should be and all that. What the advantage I had was, coming in '62, it was the older way of doing things. Like you came as a class on a certain day. You were in a class now. If a woman felt that she thought this is what she would do, it would all be set up with the schedule of her life and when she could start and how it would work. And you lived here in the mother house in a separate section. Now you would be living with some other sisters somewhere, and also you would be older, as I was. The classmates, most of them were probably 18, so they used to tease me about, when we celebrate 25 years, we'll have to push you down the aisle in the chapel. They thought I was so old at 27. But here I am, still walking. So I got a taste, bring all this up, and I wore a habit for about 5 years. I had a taste of the way it was for so long in groups where you sat in the dining room, and how it was arranged by class and what you did, and your day was set. This is when you got up, and this is when you were supposed to go to bed, and gradually moving, and his sisters began to do things other than just the Catholic grade school mostly, or like Sacred Heart Academy, of course. And we had another academy out on Dixie Highway, Andrew Marissi High School, where it was the same schedule for everybody. And now, of course, it grew as people began to do various things. I think that was the big move when the chapter, that's a gathering of sisters who come, and it's the highest authority during a chapter meeting. So they make the rules. So we went through they went through how we had been living and what the world was, how the life today was calling us to live. So, it's moved into, you lived in we always had some small houses because sisters would live at the schools or wherever they were involved. But your schedule was determined like anybody else's, what you're doing and that kind of thing. So that the uniformity kind of thing, living your life as an adult needs to, with the whole idea that having time and to take time just to be with God. And that's supported so by the community, where I always think, the many people in the world, especially mothers, to say, I have the leisure and always did, and it was supported by the community, of time for prayer, time to just be with God, in addition to worshiping with the community. That's all supported by being a member of the community, whereas so many adults, and as I said, the mother, 24-hour day, but she doesn't know. So a different schedules by the person and what you're doing. So that's one of the big things. And as I say, not wearing a habit, yes, witnessing, but, the habit was not very comfortable, especially as I'm talking, it's very hot outside today. I would hate to have it on, to be honest. And was that really speaking to, look, I'm on the same earth that you are, and I'm part of this, and this is the way I feel called to live my life. But the Ursuline sisters were wise in that at that time, we had sisters who had been here 50 years before that happened, and that's what they wore in their adult life. They came as young women, some of them still in high school. So you had the choice. You could keep the habit, or first we had a little experiment group who, you could wear a skirt or a suit of some kind, but that we had the colors. You could be blue, I think it was blue, brown, or black. Nothing frilly now, but feeling our way, and we still have in 2024. I think it's 5 or 6 sisters who do still wear a veil, and they see that as giving witness, and people feel comfortable to talk with them or something. I don't feel that way, but that doesn't make it bad or good either way. I don't think it's what we're called. So I got to feel living somewhat the older way, and I'm glad for that. It gives you kind of a feeling, and then studying Vatican II, and I think we can rightly say we're still trying to do what is right or best because of that meeting. And of course, there are people who aren't able to to accept it or choose not to accept it and want to go back to the to ways that we did things. But in terms of, sisters are working in parishes, doing a lot of things that they didn't formerly do, and then working other places, as I mentioned, the public universities. So we have a number of sisters. Well, we don't have anybody in universities anymore. I hope I'm right, as retirement came. So in that sense, yes. You will hear, and I do believe this, that the women religious in the United States took very seriously Vatican II, and the letter or the movement of us was to adapt to the ways of the world in a very positive way, not throwing out what you believe in or how you were, but all the incidental things, to look at that and how is the best way to be in ministry and try to bring God's word to others. Everybody had to be dressed alike, but we're not all alike. But those sisters, like who wear the veil, I think they feel that does give an opening to some people. I had a niece I know when I was dressing like I am now, and I was over at a large convent we had over here on the campus, and a sister came in. This is 40 years ago or more, who was still in the habit, and of course she was very nice to this little girl, and even got her a popsicle or something. But when the sister left, my niece said to me, "Why is she dressed like that?" So you saw what happened in the generations as this went on. I always find it a little strange. I have lots of people who I don't know, say in the grocery store, who will answer me like, "Hello, sister," or "Yes," and I think, oh, I must look the part. Hopefully I act the part, I don't know. But so you could kind of give arguments one way or the other, but I don't know that it's necessary for me to be identified as a sister if I'm walking down the street. Some people, will use and call me sister, but I think it's good for children to do, just like you say Miss so and so or Aunt so and so. But that for me is not even an issue. It hasn't been for a long time, but it gives an idea of how, in one sense, how drastic changes were of how we were living and what we were doing. And so this was what was requested by Vatican II, although there was a study done of sisters in the United States, those who are out in ministry, not the strict monastery type sister, as whether we were living the way we should be living. But that was hard to take, because we believed that we were following what had come out of Vatican II. But Pope Francis put a stop to that right away. And interestingly enough, so many people in the United States reacted very strongly to, "What do you mean you're questioning these women, how they're living and what they're doing?" So that was a hard time. That was in, 12, 15 years ago now already. Yeah. I think, to put it in one sentence, basically, it was something developed or came to me as I experienced as a call, and it just, how are you to be? How are you to spread God's love for us while in the world? Is one time a lot of religious life was the idea of withdrawing from the world. It was that kind of theology. And our foundress, Saint Angela Merici, she really didn't found a religious community. She brought a group of women, followed her, and they found a company. But they stayed doing whatever they were doing. And so it's go out to the world, or be you are in the world. I mean, I don't know where else I could be. And your ministry is there with doing and helping people and spreading that. I came to realize that there really, that it was a ministry or working with people, but how to relate to people in terms of accepting the person, and to especially when it was younger people, to help them discern who they are and what they're called to, so that kind of purpose, in addition to if it was teaching whatever the subject matter was, but how you go about relating to people and just trying to be kind and helpful. You're called to try to bring God's love to the world, to people around you. I felt her teaching. She saw people as individuals, and it encouraged this, both doing something to help people, but also in a sense in the way you feel God calling you to do it, and the whole love of God which comes through, of course, in all her writings and what we have. So that, in many ways, I mean, you could say, well, what did St. Angela do that was so great? Well, she's got lots of followers, and that there was one bishop who said it was a miracle that her rule, as they call it, how she brought, these women wanted to follow her and brought them together. And then what she wrote to say, this is the way it is, that survived was a miracle. So she should be a saint. So I think she was seen as a very holy woman, but also must have been so accepting of people that whether they were in high piece of government or some special position in that where she was living, or whether they were somebody on the streets, they were all accepted, and those people who were in places of importance in that particular area would often come to her for advice and guidance. So see the opportunities and try to answer the need as you can. And I think this is what Angela was saying. Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that I had that time to be a young adult. Bought a car and that kind of stuff. Had the going with guys at times and with friends and tumble grading and being in weddings of people and all of that. So that, and then just the responsibilities of adult life. I mean, I was still living at home, but certainly more independently. So I feel blessed that I had that, but it was kind of where where more common for women to come at that time. So religious communities even said, no, you need something more. That age of about 18 is a little awkward because you're an adult, but you're really not an adult in the sense of after when you look back at it, what you have to learn. So I'm glad that I had those experiences. Supporting yourself and making friends and having a feel for the business world and just that kind of thing, and being in journalism, just involved in what's going on in the world and trying to understand it and keep track, even because when we were in formation, you didn't see a paper, and of course wasn't much on TV then. But one of the things, when I did work in the laundry a little bit, they put me into sorting the sisters' clothes. We all had a number. And in the bottom of those baskets or containers that we used they'd bring the things over here and put them at a specific place for each place. And of course, we would immediately try to read the newspaper to see what was going on. Now, when I think of the whole world of communication, gosh, TV was, in terms of, and sometimes it's even hard for me to think, oh my gosh, it was this way. Well, I remember when all the TVs went off at midnight, but many people, they gradually began to have them in the home, and so there was there was some kind of TV because when JFK we were in the division. It was his when he was assassinated. They brought a TV in here, so they had it here someplace in the house. But to think about the size of this house and the size of numbers, and so you had one telephone in this building. Now we carry it around with us. So that change or that evolution of how you communicate is so different. I mean, I always think, today we know of all the problems, we can know of all the problems all over the world. It kind of gets to you after a while, and you wouldn't know that, and then the newspaper coming out the next day may tell you. And now the newspaper has to find a new way of being, because we already know that from our phone or whatever. Yes, it was that idea of withdrawing from the world. There's lots of evil out there, so you come away, and then I guess you could be closer to God, which I don't believe. God's right here. And so you try to help that world, help the people in that world.